as we welcome in TSN analyst, former NHL player, and one of the good guys in the NHL and all around people, Jamie McLennan. Noodles, welcome to the show.
How you doing, guys? What's shaking today?
Noodles, let's just, you know what, Noodles, I'm just going to start with you. Bobby yesterday picked a Toronto-Dallas final, and you can imagine being in Ottawa and playing for the Sens, he is being vastly ridiculed. You know what? It's hate speech at this point for him picking the Leafs in the final. Would you put Toronto in the final?
No, because I live here and I see everything every day. So I think they're a really good team. But I think they're one of 9 that you're looking at. Like I was listening to you guys before I came on. You know, Bobby got the text from a buddy saying, you know, back on the sauce, blah, blah, blah. But like LA could be a really good team. Like I think my only thing out west is 97 and 29 look pissed. And like I remember Nathan McKinnon at his comments after he lost in the playoffs. I think they were in the finals or semifinals, where he was like, I've been in this league 9 years and I haven't accomplished you know what. And that resonated with me because I was like, these guys, and Bobby, you guys know, you've been, you know, Yorkie, you guys have been around, Wally, you guys have been around high-end athletes your whole life. You guys were one. Some of these guys are just, they're possessed. Like, and I just look at 97 and I think he's on a mission. And I don't know if it's this year, but they've got a really good team there. I know their D probably could use another player. I like Ekholm. Hopefully he's healthy. Seems like he's nicked up right now. But I think Edmonton could be the team out of the West. But I like LA. I think Dallas is a sleeper. Like there's some really cool Colorado. Like, why are you going to sleep on them too? Because if they get a little bit of health, I just don't know if Johansson is the fit. Like I think he needs to step up his game, but he's a hell of a player. But there's, like I say, I can name up 4 or 5 pack out west, and then out east, like Carolina, like they could be the most underrated top tier team every year. Jersey, I think Jack Hughes, I've been saying this for 2 weeks now. It resonated with what Gretzky said on the panel last year, where he said he thinks Jack Hughes has a chance to be the best player in the league and to challenge McDavid. And it like stuck with me. And then I started watching Jersey a bunch. And I think Jack Hughes is going to be a top 5 player in the world this year. So what does that push Jersey into? And yes, the Leafs are the Leafs. They're regular season heroes, man. They win the regular season. They win every press conference. They win every, PR thing. They win, man. For 6 months around here, they win every day. And then when the pressure ramps up and the squeeze is on, they start to realize like, oh, geez, other teams can be good in this league too. Like it's not just them. So, I could, in a bizarre world, could I see Toronto, Edmonton in the final? I mean, maybe. Could I see Jersey, Edmonton? Could I see Jersey? Combination, but I think there's a 4 or 5 pack on each side that could legitimately do some damage. And, that's kind of, so I'm not committing to the Leafs. No, I think they're one of 4 or 5 out east. And something always in the saying around here is, it went leafy. Something always goes leafy, and I don't know what that is, but it seems to happen. So, Bobby, I love the setup. I swear to God, we got the same designer.
I mean, yeah, it looked exactly the same. I started I'm moving, so I got certain ones coming down, but I was one of the first things I thought about. It was like, is he trying to buy my place?
Well, no, the thing is mine is a setup in a trailer. Yours is probably some $10 million house somewhere down the road, because a lot different.
You're on the set. You're on the set. Noodles. Hey,
it's a gated community.
Yeah. Double gated. Bobby's double gated. If you sneak through the first one, they're getting you at the second one.
Yeah.
Hey, Noodles. if I read between the lines here, because everybody says you and I sound the same when I used to do television. It's weird. I agree with that too. And now you got the same setup as Bobby. If I read between the lines, you're picking an Edmonton, Carolina final if you had to be put to the test here.
Right now, yes. Yeah. Like right now, I just think Carolina, like if Tony DeAngelo is your number 6 defenseman, they're deep. Like they're really deep and just quietly. Again, like Kotkaniemi, like there's some guys, there's some question marks because, as you know, in this game, your team is driven by the high end talent. But then I look at Vegas and how balanced they were. Yes, Eichel, I think, is superstar caliber, but Marchessault's just a damn good player. I think Stone is a hell of a player. I put him on the cusp of superstar because I take that guy on my team every day of the week. Mm-hmm. But you look at the balance, and you even talk to teams throughout the league. They're like that third and fourth line won them the cup because if you look at it, Edmonton, they went 6 games and they pressed them. Edmonton couldn't get a save at the right time, and their defensive structure broke down. Really, like the hat trick by Marchessault in the second period. I think it was game 5. I think it decimated them. So they couldn't get back. They couldn't handle that. But I look at the depth of Vegas, and then I look at the depth of Carolina, and they kind of mirror each other. It's not sexy, but man, is it good.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I don't like Edmonton's goaltending. I don't want to spend all its time on it, but they don't do it for me.
Right. Well, Skinner's 24 years old and he's still learning. I don't see him as a Demko, as a Markstrom, as a Vasilevsky, as a Hellebuck, one of the 8 top goaltenders in the world. But now you come back to the argument, if you're good enough, God love Aiden Hill, he was their 5th on the depth chart. If you put Quickie above on merit, and Vegas won the Stanley Cup with a guy who played really well at the right time. And I've been saying this too. Jack Campbell might revert back to the Jack Campbell we saw in Toronto, being a good goaltender on a good team. So it might, in the end, all you need is somebody to make a save. But you're right. Like trust isn't there unless you've seen the guy do it. And, right now your last image is of Stuart Skinner just going down, getting beat over the shoulders and not looking super sharp. So I don't disagree with that. Until they go earn it, then we're always going to question it.
Fair enough. But since we're on the topic of playoffs, I want to ask you if you could give us your standings in the Atlantic Division, which is a hotbed topic because it seems tough. So who are you picking if you can 1 to 8?
1 to 8. All right. Let me see. Okay. Let's do 8 is Montreal, but I think Montreal gets better this year. Like if you look at it just, based on them being one of the most injured teams last year. So if a guy had a hangnail, they just shut him down for the year. That's just really what it was. Like, that's just because that's what they were trying to do. They were going for Bedard. So it was like, okay, you're playing well, you phantom injury, get the hell out of here type of thing. And so everyone's picking the Leafs. I don't disagree, but I think the Leafs take a step back from the 111 points they got. I think they get about 105 points, not because the team is any less, they're different, but the teams around them got better. Ottawa's better, Buffalo's better, Detroit's better. Everyone's saying, okay, Tampa is going to take a step back because of Vasilevsky. And then I checked and I'm like, don't they have 4 Hall of Famers, like just playing in front of like Kucherov, Hedman, Point, Stamkos, like that's a hell of a team.
But they don't have any goaltending.
Right, but you all of a sudden Ilya Samsonov went from playing dodgeball in Washington to having 30 wins last year. So how about I just give me stable goaltending on a really good team, and keep in mind Tampa, every time they faced adversity, they know how to play. So it's like, okay, we're not going to be able to play freewheeling because we don't have a freak in net like Vasilevsky, who makes 8 good saves before we even get settled into the game. Yeah. So Tampa, and I'm not sleeping on John Cooper. Like, guy's a hell of a coach. Like, he's not just going to let this team go, oh, we don't have Vasilevsky, we're going to not win a game for 2 months. So, okay, give me the standings again back. Sorry, I'm rambling here. Okay, so I'll give the Leafs 1, but it's a reluctant because I think they take a step back with points. But I think the Leafs, I have the Sens at 4. So I think, again, it's the same thing with Boston. Yes, you're missing Bergeron, you're missing Krejci, but Allmark, that D is still solid. Like I like that team, and I feel like they're not just gonna crash and burn because our fearless leader is gone. They didn't crash and burn when Chara left. They found a way to adapt. Same thing. Like they're going to adapt, and Pasternak's like one of the best players on the planet. So I'll go Toronto, Boston. I will give Tampa love, and I'll go Ottawa, Buffalo, Detroit. Oh no, sort of. Toronto, Boston, Tampa, Ottawa, Florida, Buffalo, Detroit, Montreal. Even though I think Detroit probably gets, some love, but I think they're a little bit behind Buffalo and Ottawa in their progression.
I love it.
Panthers noodles. How come you got the Panthers out? I had the note too, by the way. What's your rationale on that one?
They had a crappy regular season, but you're missing 2 defensemen for a while there. And I think that's a real drop off. Like and listen, I can make the same rationale. This team knows how to win. Matthew Tkachuk's a rock star, but Bobrovsky and Knight, like Bobrovsky, God, he was lightning in a bottle for about 4 weeks. But before that, it was Alex Lyon that had him wearing a ball cap. So, I still think there's some holes there. That's why and usually teams that go to the Cup final, like, I don't know if they follow it up with like this, amazing start. Usually it's like that hangover, like, God, we didn't train in the summer. We've had a kind of a short off season. So I just look at a step back for them, but, arguments can be made that, they hit the ground running because they know how to play at that high level. And you ask players like, the kid I love there is that Lundell kid. Like, I watched him play the other night. I watched him play live in wherever it was the other day, Sydney. And he's a player, he's a player. And you get Barkov and Lundell, I don't think they're going to be, I'm always committing to 5 guys from the Atlantic, 5 teams from the Atlantic. I feel like the Atlantic's that strong. So I'm always committing to 5 from there and 3 from the Metro. That's just the way I see it.
Couldn't be more wrong. Okay. So before we get into the Sens, guys, I have a question of all of you who have played the National Hockey League. You've seen Stanley Cup rings. So, by the way, last night, good to see Stoner and Eichel on Monday Night Football with the Vegas Golden Knights in the Stanley Cup. Tonight, they unveiled the banner. Have you guys seen the rings that they're getting this year? Nope. These things, to me, they're phenomenal. But this you're seeing is the inside of the ring.
Wow.
The ice surface is made of actual pearl. Then you have the screw on top that can be used as a pendant. This is like people
That's
have
unbelievable.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
Now, the bigger the ring, the more obnoxious it is. Like, I think it's cool, but you never, unless you're Woody Harrelson from Kingpin, or you're like walking into the bar, like, dun, 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 dun. Like, what are you going to do with that? Like, that's going in a safe, and you bring it out at parties, you bring it out to show people. But I will say this, that I've committed from day one. Bill Foley, like, this guy knows how to roll. Like, if you even look, and he wants to make himself part of the show. Like, I remember going to a game there in the pregame ceremony, like, it's Bill Foley flying in a helicopter, like, with army fatigues. He's like, I'm landing at the rink. Like, it's like, I'm like, this guy is like involved in the pregame show. And, in a way, it's like amazingly obnoxious. Like, they're like, I'm so rich. We've won. Yes. Who cares? Rings for everybody. And can you only imagine if, say like Toronto won? I mean, there'd be an usher who like ushers people in from the outside that gets a ring. So
everybody get a ring.
Yeah,
that's funny. I remember when Boston won their cup. I was there and I was walking around and I noticed, okay, the elevator guy that's taking the press elevator's got a ring on. I started asking, like, anybody that wanted a ring there could have got one that worked in the building. It was crazy.
Greg Campbell's a good friend of mine. They won it that year, and I swear he told me it was something like there was 560 rings given out, like something obnoxious, like something crazy. Now there was tiers. So
Yes,
maybe the
that's right.
elevator guy got the finest cubic zirconia. You never know, but I doubt it. But I remember that. Remember the guy with the mustache, the singer who always like.
Oh,
the,
yeah.
You know, the whatever his
What's-
Rennie
what's it-
Rancourt.
Oh,
That
in
guy.
Boston. Yes.
That guy got a ring. Like,
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
so
in his
Have at
mind,
it.
like he got the fans fired up for every game. So he truly believes he probably had a lot to do with the fast starts, right?
yeah, I mean, a good anthem singer can really help you with that first shift. But a bad one, if you have somebody who just butchers it,
he ain't getting a ring.
Sucks the life out of the building too. So you never know.
There was a couple.
It's always it was always scary when you came on the ice and you would look down and the red carpet was 5 times the size of what it needed to be because you just knew a bunch of kids were going to come out and make a meal out of the anthems.
I know.
God.
We had a guy. My first year in the minors, I played in Capital District Islanders. It was like in Troy, New York, a gritty setting. So I swear to God, we played an afternoon exhibition game against Adirondack. So we just drove up the highway. Adirondack was very close. And it was just in like a building. There wasn't even barely any fans there. Like if there was 20 fans there, it was like a 1 o'clock on a Tuesday exhibition game. So we're sitting there for the anthem and our PR guy just hands the mic to this guy. And the guy gets out there and he starts like, he's not even like singing the anthem. He just starts like singing and like doing all this like motions. And all of a sudden the police bust through the door and they grab him and drag him off the ice. The guy had escaped from like, you know, the hospital and our PR guy had handed him a microphone.
Were the cops on the ice chasing him? He's running on
No,
the
like
ice.
he was like standing, like there was literally like, you know, you open the door and you're just standing there. He was like standing there right off the bench. And I remember like just standing there, like, what is going on? And the cops are like yarding this guy and they dragged him off. And afterwards, I'm like, because you're just trying to get into the game. You're not even paying attention. And I was like, what the hell was that? They're like, that wasn't the anthem singer. It was some guy who had escaped from, you know, the hospital. And they blamed our PR guy because the guy handed him a microphone. I'll never forget it. Jeff Knapp was his name, our PR guy. Just handed the microphone.
Jeff Knapp was probably the PR guy, the trainer, the equipment manager.
Yes. Bus
Hey,
driver.
what year was that, dude? What year was that? Do you remember?
91. I think it was my first year pro, 91 in Adirondack. So you're
Girls.
probably a year behind me.
I was on the other side of the ice. I was playing for Adirondack. I didn't catch that though.
You see Jeff Knapp getting choked out by some guy. Like it's just nonsense.
And you don't remember this, Noodles? Or Yorkie?
90 is it? No, I'm trying to remember my first. I was 91, 92. So I think I wasn't playing that game, but man,
might not have played. It was literally a 1 o'clock on a Tuesday in like middle of October. Crazy.
Last thing about the ring, by the way, the top that comes off, if you wear it as a pendant, they have a replacement top for you to put on. It's a little less flashy, but you can still wear the ring and the pendant.
Nice.
If you want to order one, there are different levels that you can order. Fan ones. It starts at 10. Oh, there's one at 10,000, one at 7,000, and one at 900. So you can order your own Stanley Cup ring from the Vegas Golden Knights. Would anybody
take the 900?
Yeah. I'm like, if you're spending 10 grand on a ring that you just want, anyway, good for you. By the way, I petitioned to have Lyndon Slewage sing the anthem for Ottawa on Saturday. I think he should be the one to sing the anthem coming in. Bobby, you would have had Lyndon Slewage sing,
yeah, right? He was phenomenal when we did have him. Yeah.
I want him to come back and do it.
I agree.
All right.
I'd love to see that.
I'll move on, Noodles, and that is to the Ottawa Senators. I'm going to start with goaltending since that's your main work, and that's, do you like the tandem? Of all the tandems in the Atlantic Division, where do you put the Ottawa Senators?
Geez. Let's see. I mean, God, that Tampa one, you might as well just take right off the list there.
I tried to tell you. They're both making $775.
I know, but Jerry Johansson there, or whatever his name is, Jonas Johansson. The other guy, Tompkins, he was in Russia more of an EC. he's an ECHL guy. You know, he's
never played an NHL game.
So Montreal is not. So let me go. We'll go Boston because they won and they deserve it. Like Allmark and Swayman were awesome last year. This Levi kid in Buffalo is going to be special, but he reminds me of a young Marc-Andre Fleury. And if you remember Fleury at the beginning of his career, he's really active. So there was a lot of holes. And so I think he might have a few bumps, but so Ottawa's ahead of them. So I'm going to go Boston, Ottawa, Florida, Toronto. I like Ville Husso, so I'll go there. Then I'll go Buffalo. Then I go Montreal. Then I go Tampa. Just based on now, if Vasilevsky comes back, we're talking a different story. So that's give me 2 months from now, I'll come back on. We'll redo this. But I think Ottawa's right there. Like I'm a huge Korpisalo guy. I think Forsberg's underrated if he's healthy. So those two, and it seems like it's a healthy competition too. I don't think these guys are going to be sitting there on the bench wishing the other guy gets lit up. Like I think they're going to support each other and push each other. And I think that's good for the Senators. So I really, really like that tandem. I thought it was a great move by Pierre. Go and get a guy who, and Korpisalo to commit to it. Yes, it's money, but you got to move to a Canadian market. You're going to be in the fishbowl. There's big expectations. Like these two have to be good the first 2 months, or else that's the last 4 years they missed the playoffs. They couldn't get a save. And Bobby, you saw firsthand. Like God, like these guys and Matt Murray. Nice guy, all of that. You knew there was going to be some bumps. He was no good. Even last year, Forsberg, it wasn't his fault, but he had to play all the games because Talbot got hurt for the first 5 weeks. So they didn't have that like yin and yang, that they didn't have that like push on each other. It was just like, okay, you go play because we don't trust the kids. And now that, by the end of the year, they had 7 goalies, including Dylan Ferguson, and Marilainen. So
and Josh Norris is there?
Well, I mean, I don't know. We all know people behind the scenes and can talk to people, but I don't know what the hell is going on there. I was around the team last week. I didn't even dare ask, close, not close. You hear some stuff get released. You're like, all right, is this a hard line? What are we dealing with here? Are they 5 million apart? It seems like they're not that far apart. So I kept thinking to myself, okay, is this a player? Is Norris going to go on LTIR, sign Pinto, and then Norris comes off? Is it some sort of cap gymnastics? And then it doesn't seem like that. It just seems like they haven't agreed on something. They need Pinto in the lineup. They need him. It's just, and Norris, I feel bad because that kid's a player. And now all of a sudden, you've had 2 injuries and he might be gun shy too, just to come back. Yeah. Am I going to put myself in a situation, a loose puck battle? Am I going to win a draw in the defensive zone? Because isn't that the last time he popped his shoulder out was winning a draw? So I could see them being very slow with him. And I can actually see the player probably being apprehensive as well, just to be, in the mix. It's almost like you got to build some confidence to get back into that game. But man, oh man, that's a huge drop off going from Tim to Ridley Gregg, who I like, but Ridley should probably be an up and downer this year,
Yeah. Agreed. So that's the concern of, but you see, Bobby, and you can tell me too, I know you know Josh very well, but what's the mental part? The block, I understand you don't want to get hurt again, but you need to be on the ice at some point. At some point, you're going to have to test this. Am I to think that he's trying to not take to the ice?
See, no. And I think we had this discussion yesterday. I think everybody else is trying to put him in a position where he's the one that's gun shy. And I don't see that at all. I've known Josh. I know that he's probably chomping at the bit. I know that he's in part of the conversations with coaches, staff, the doctor that comes in from the outside to make the decision. It's a big group discussion that happens in 3 different groups. So you actually never get in front of everybody in a room together when these things happen. As you guys that have played know, you kind of get some secondhand information. You say how you feel. And my guess is Josh is not the one that's saying, I can't go. I'm gun shy. My guess is that Josh is losing his mind right now, knowing that something's wrong and it's not feeling the way he's supposed to be feeling. But I don't like that we're, like you said, I don't like that we're making this a mental thing on Josh, because it's not a fair assessment.
Well, I love the guy too. Like that's the scary part is, I think he's a star. I think he's just scratched the surface on what he's capable of. And, I just, in the back of my mind, I want him to be 100% healthy before he plays, because all I can think of is like, who's the defenseman in Edmonton? He was their number one there. Clefbaum, yeah. Edmonton just lost Clefbaum. Like that, he was their number one defenseman. They lost him to a shoulder injury, and he never came back. And it's unfair. I don't know the structural part of it. All I can think of is I want that kid, Josh Norris, who I love, to be healthy before he comes back. Instead of like, this isn't something where you can be like 95% grind through. It's, concussions and structural stuff where really on critical muscles and situations for players. Like his shoulder, like he's got to be able to give hits, absorb hits, be strong enough for loose puck battles. But it sucks because he's such a good player. And could you just imagine Stützle, Norris, Pinto?
Perfect.
Like that's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And when Pinto gets good enough, which he already is, but now you start pushing maybe Norris to the wing just because he's got a good one-timer, and pushing Pinto up if you want to like load up a line. Like that you've got that type of versatility. But man, to start the season, without both of them, and you guys can speak to this more than I can. Missing training camp, I don't know if you ever did. Like, don't you feel like you're jumping on a moving train? I always feel like guys who miss training camp, it takes them a bit, or they get injured because their muscles you go from 0 to 60 really quick. Like I want him to sign. I want him to be in the lineup as soon as possible, but I also want him to be able to step right in, not just jump on a moving train and look ill-timed.
Sure. Yeah. Do you ever miss all of camp, Bob? You ever missed camp?
Not all of it, but I've missed most of preseason once. I think I missed some of the early days of camp in Ottawa at one point, not contractually related, but injury related. So, no, but I couldn't agree with Noodles more. And you know what? Things are going to get leafy real fast. as he said, if you don't get one at least in Pinto, but these guys got to be in the lineup. In that division, you have to be strong down the middle.
But put it this way, if Josh hurts his shoulder a third time, and that's the thing here, like that's going to be catastrophic for the player. So I get it. I totally get it. But you're right, Neil. Something's got to be up here, obviously.
Well, I just want, the Pinto thing's money. So you got to sort that out. But, with Josh, it's structural. It's making sure he's fine, making sure he's comfortable, making sure the doctors are comfortable with signing off on that. Keep in mind, and I'm going to go to the business side of this. This is Josh's livelihood. This is his life. And you get some doctor that wants to go, hey, you know what? You're 90% go type of thing. Like that can come back and bite the doctor in the ass, bite the organization in the ass. They have to protect the player. That is their job. And how many times have we seen this? Now, Yorkie, you and I are older than Bobby, but like in our day, a lot of times the doctor worked with the team. Nowadays the doctor's got to work for himself and work for the team, but also work for the player. So this is something that has to be factored in too, is the doctor wants to do what's best for Josh Norris, not what's best for the Ottawa Senators, and you can work hand in hand, but ultimately what's best for Josh Norris is what's best for the Ottawa Senators, because if Norris is healthy and comfortable, then he can play and he'll be a rock star for them. But the doctor's got to, not sign off until he's 100% comfortable in Josh's health too.
Noodles, you're making me laugh thinking about when we used to play. I remember going in, this is in Anaheim, Bob, my shoulder injury. I couldn't even lift my arm up. And I go in before a game and the coach is like, how's the shoulder? I'm like, I can't really lift my arm up. Got no strength. And he's like, can you play? And I'm like, again, I can't lift my arm up. So probably not. looks at the trainer. Do you think you can get him ready? The trainer looks at me, What do you think? All right, give it a try. Here we go.
Yeah.
A little different now.
It is, and it should be. I mean, it's, you know,
Yes.
through like I'm joking, but like 1991, my first year pro, I got called up that year. So I ended up getting called up. Our trainer was a guy named Eddie Tyberski. Unbelievable guy, Eddie. He's passed since, but no joke. You'd go into the trainer's room, he'd be smoking and working on guys, and there's a pizza there. Put his dart down to be like rubbing the guy and then dart back. Like it just, the game had changed, right? Like it just, you know, like it just was, that was the National Hockey League, but it's like, okay, Eddie, you know, like, what do you think, Tiber? Like, wow, you hurt? Are you injured? Like that type of stuff. It's different nowadays where guys are such fine-tuned athletes. It's big money business, even though the money was good back then. It was nothing compared to today if you weren't a top-tier player. So I don't blame 1991, 1995. That's all they knew. When I played junior in 1988, our bus driver was the trainer, was all of that. Like they did their best. But, you know, if they had an athletic therapist certification, that was one of the lucky teams. You know, I played in Spokane. Our trainer lived at the rink. Like he lived at the rink. Like it just, so through education, what I mean is things have changed. So it's not like, you know, I'm not blaming that. That's all they knew. That's what it was like. Yeah. But things have changed for the positive, for the good. The more you learn about concussions, the more you learn about, you know, separating the player and the organization and everything. And so that's what you come down to it. Josh is getting the best doctors, the best care. And they decide he's ready. That's when he's going to play.
Yeah, the Sens, we all know this. The Sens staff is very good. The doctors are very good. This is like it's fun to tell the old school stories. It just makes me think, Bob, you would have loved the 90s. You played in the wrong era.
Yeah.
Although he wouldn't be as wealthy.
That's fine. But nobody would have frowned on me for having to chew in the hot tub 4 minutes before warm-ups. You're gonna go activate anything? I'm like, well, my feet are in the tub.
Did you guys play with guys who smoked?
Yes. Like
Wally, to Noodles' story, my first, and you mentioned you played in Capital District. When I was in Adirondack, our athletic therapist was a gym teacher. That was his accreditation. So if you went in for an injury, first of all, he was asleep on the desk in the morning, and then he would just put some ice on it. If you had any injury, it was ice. There was nothing else. And like there was guys down there, like Keith Primo was down there, Mike Sillinger. Like we had big time prospects, Marty Lapointe, and just a totally different era, Bob. You would have loved it. You would have loved it, man.
Yeah, I played with lots of guys who smoked like regularly, like either during the game they'd chew, but then after the game, like darting, like, you know, one guy on the bus, like blowing it out the window type of thing. You're like, you can't wait to get to the airport. You know, like, it just, but that was again, different era. Like it just, and a lot of those players were like top tier guys, right? Like it wasn't a fourth liner. These were like some top tier players that regularly darted, not when they had beers and stuff. It was like, you know, we need this team meeting to get done so I can get outside and have a dart type of thing. So
I think, Lanny McDonald's not Lanny McDonald. Guy Lafleur is the famous, the most famous guy. Yeah. Anyway, Noodles, I don't want to keep you long, but you're such a good storyteller. I might as well just start with, since it's opening night, like, do you have many opening night stories that stick out for you? And I do want to ask about Japan at some point. I don't know if I've ever talked to you about playing in Japan.
Okay. The opening night story. I just remember Tommy Salo and I one time, you come out, they introduce you or whatever. And I think I was starting that night. So I got the start and I come out and all I could think about is don't fall. Like, don't fall. So I get out and I like do the speed wobble, like get out to the blue line, and that Tommy takes one step on and does a header. And he lays there and he's looking at me and I'm just like, oh my God. Like it just, that's all I could think about is opening night. Like, obviously you're excited for the crowd. You're excited for a lot of things that happen, but it's all the semantics before. Like I always hated the distractions of all the nonsense before the game. The anthem, go drop the puck. Like everything, the anthem and everything is for everybody else. And I know respect, and I'm not trying to disrespect it, but when I was playing, I couldn't care less about anything other than puck drop. Like, I had so much anxiety leading up to the game. Yeah. I just needed the puck to drop to see how I was going to play that night. So everything else was window dressing for me. So opening night with the Islanders one night, Tommy, I think, did a header and I was able to skate through it. But yeah, and Japan quickly, Japan was awesome. I went to Russia my last year. You guys know my last shift in the NHL was the incident with Johan Franzen, and I got suspended.
Gord Miller brings it up once a game.
Yeah, once a game he brings it up. So, but yeah, so I that summer a few teams had offered me deals, but they were either two-way or I still owed the league 4 games, and I wasn't, and some money. I wasn't going to give it to them. So I signed in Russia. I went there for 2 months, and that is a whole other podcast show that I will talk about. Because Russia was just a disaster, but a funny disaster. And then I was going to retire. I left Russia. They hated me. I didn't care for them. And I was going to retire. And my buddy who had played in Japan for 16 years, I grew up with him. He had Japanese descent, and he had gotten his passport over there. And he called me and he said, "Why don't you come and retire with me? Like, it's my last year. We'll play together." So I went over there, and I don't know if you remember this movie called Mr. Baseball years ago with Tom Selleck. He went to Japan. And so it's basically that. You go and you work for a team. So I signed with the Nippon Paper Cranes. It's the biggest paper mill in the world. And the guys in the summer work at the mill, and in the winter they play for the hockey team. No way. And so I get over there, and it was unbelievable. The culture was amazing. You want to talk about smoking? Like, name me a teammate that didn't smoke on that team. So you get there, and it was the equivalent of the East Coast League. So there was 2 good lines, and then it was a real drop-off. You had to have some locals on the team and stuff. And we had like a 15-year-old kid on the team that they were developing. But the hockey was amazing. The one thing that was really unique was before the game, everyone had to line up and bow. And so you bow to the crowd.
I like it.
And then after, so the sign of respect for everybody. And then after the game, you did a lap and you thanked everybody for, regardless, you lose 9-1 and you're still thanking people for showing up and that, which I thought was kind of unique. But the culture was amazing. Like, and you know who else I brought was Tyson Nash. So Tyson Nash and I went over, and
oh boy,
man, we were in the karaoke every night. We were just killing it. Imagine like 2 English-speaking guys at karaoke singing like the Beatles. Like, we just tear the house down. It was awesome. So I love Japan. I loved it. Wow. It was such a great. And think about it. There was 4 teams in Japan, 2 in Korea, and 1 in China. So where else are you going to ever, visit these countries? I got paid to go and see these amazing countries, and Korea was really cool. China was like unique. Like, I'd never been to China, Beijing, and that team was last place. So they said, you don't need to dress. So I sat there in the stands after going and shopping all day. I bought 10 pairs of like True Religion jeans for like $12. Like, there's a place called the Silk Market there. You could just buy anything for any. And I just remember the one thing, we lost that game that I didn't play. So they were mad. So they made me play the next game. And I remember looking back, and the goal judge was smoking. He had an ashtray on the boards.
Oh, I love this.
Incredible. Is that in the book? Is your Japan days in the book too?
No, I don't think so. No, I didn't. And even my Russian stories, I tapered them back. I even changed my book a lot because I had a whole big thing on Russia, and then the flight.
Yes, the
Ufa. No, not Ufa. It wasn't
Locomotive.
Locomotive. Yeah. Yes, Pavel Dimitri, who was a dear friend of mine, and a crazy story. Brad McCrimmon, who was the coach of the team and passed there, the night before the plane crash, he sent a message through our mutual friend Rob Cooksey. You guys know Cookie? Do you know?
Yeah.
Cookie?
Yep.
So Cookie and Beast were really close. So Cookie called me and he said, "Hey, I talked to Beast," and he said, "Every story you told me about Russia, was true. Like the money was good, but I told him, like I said, the planes were really scary. The next day I woke up and a plane had crashed, and it was the locomotive. It was awful. But so I pulled a lot of stories out of that book because I didn't feel like it was right to be making fun of that situation or having fun with it when I had lost 6 teammates and friends on that flight. So, but it was, man, oh man, like Russia was that's a different podcast. I could tell you 100 stories.
Well, and former Ottawa Senator Karl Rakunik on that plane as well.
Yes. Yep.
But I did a World Junior in Ufa, Russia, which is 6 hours east of Moscow, like middle of nowhere, basically. Anyway, when we got on the plane to leave, there was so much luggage. They were storing it in the bathroom. Again, it was just jammed everywhere. It was in the aisles. There was no
rules.
Measures aren't quite the same. The safety isn't quite the same.
No rules. It's the Wild West. That's what I call it. The Wild West. And money can buy you anything there. Insane.
Yes. It's very good. Anyway, Noodles. By the way, Jamie has a book out written by our good friend, co-authored by Ian Mendez, Best Seat in the House. It's got great stories, if you can't already tell. Every time he comes on, always a good story. So, Noodles, we appreciate it. We'll book you in for a Russian podcast.
Yes.
Sounds good. Whenever you guys want.
Good luck this season.
Thanks, guys.
Hey,
we'll see you soon. Take care.
See you, Noodles.